Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 44. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at Rethink Coaching, and thank you for sharing your time with me today. I always say this, I appreciate you doing that because time is our most precious and valuable gift, and I just truly appreciate that you're giving me your time today. And in return, I'm going to talk about some great, powerful things today. So here we are, team. Gosh, I woke up this morning before I headed out to do my exercise, and I avoided potholes this time. And it's June 30th. How in the heck did it get to be June 30th? You know, this year has gone by at an amazing clip. And the only thing that I can attribute it to is the more you live your most authentic life, the more you do the things that bring you joy and expose you to happiness, the faster time goes by because you're not regretting or you're not wanting to avoid doing something. It's like your life is so full of great things. And I want that for all of you, to have a life by intention, a business by intention, because when you're doing that and you're in that flow state, time does go by quickly. And so here we are, June 30th, embracing it, knowing that we're kicking off really the last half of the year. For my folks that are listening that are in the sales field, we may have already started working on the second half of the year just because of the sales lag time. But here we are, June 30th. Tomorrow's July 1st. And if you're listening here in the States, you should be hearing this before the 4th of July, but we're getting ready to celebrate our country. And it's just a great time to take some opportunity to enjoy. So I want to talk to you today about two things, and they really do go hand in hand. And the two things I want to talk about is the importance of being you and acknowledging what you don't like about you and maybe what you're avoiding. And so I want to start with what I think is really important is, are you being you? And I say this because we've got social media, we've got more stuff coming at us. There's some absurd amount, like 2,200 marketing blips come your way every day. So we're having a lot of external influences telling us all the right way to do something. So if you're in real estate, there's a million videos. If you scroll through the reels and the post, there's, about every third one, there's a video telling you the right way to do something. And so we get exposed to a lot of that. And I think when we are really striving to be successful or really striving to grow to the next level, we do look to mentors. We do look to coaches to help us get there. But what we can't do is forget about who we are, become this persona, and expect that we're going to attract people to us, because at any given time, if I'm not being my authentic you, people are going to feel that and they're going to retract. That's just how it goes. And so it's really important. Now, sometimes we're choosing to not be us because we're avoiding the parts of us that we don't love. So we're going to get there. But I do want to share, I know for me personally, I've been blessed with amazing mentors from my early days in the corporate world to my current day. I've got a couple coaches right now that are kicking my butt, but they are amazing. And what I want to instill with all of us is, whether it's a online group program, you've got a coach, you've got a mentor, whatever it is, that you're not so obsessed with becoming that person that you leave your own personality aside. So, I mean, this is comical. I was in my early 20s. And when I was in college, really before I went to college, I knew that, when somebody said, what do you want to do when you grow up? I wanted to be in the hotel business. I was fascinated by it. And I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it was because we couldn't really afford that on our vacations. We wouldn't always stay at the nicest hotels or motel. But I was fascinated by the whole thing. And that's what I wanted to do. So early on in my career, I had two amazing managers that were helping me on my journey to get into upper level management with Marriott. And I've shared this with you. It's the best company I have ever worked for other than my own. And what I found myself doing as this junior manager was emulating them in a way that I lost myself. And what would happen is if we only had a 2 to a 5 minute conversation, it was fine because I could mimic them. I could pretend to be them. But if we were having an in-depth conversation, or if it was a more serious situation that we were talking about, or I was leading a meeting, at some point, you got to be you. And the saddest thing in the world is to watch somebody lose themselves and then not be able to figure it out. So watch what you're doing, take the lessons, infuse them into who you are, and run with it. If you are imitating in a way that has changed your tonality, it's changed your cadence, it's changed your vocabulary, that may not be the best direction for you to be going. Now, we learn things and we share it, but really pay attention. And I do think, as we talked the other topic today about avoiding, I do think that sometimes it's easier to emulate and become somebody else because we're avoiding us. We're avoiding ourselves. We're avoiding things about us that we don't like. So why not just become somebody else? Early on in my coaching career, I had a coach, wasn't my coach for very long. And I remember having a conversation with this guy, and he said, this is your opportunity to create your persona. And I'm like, what are you talking about? To create your coaching persona and be whoever you want to be. And I thought, well, I just want to be me. And it was, I almost felt like he didn't think who I was going to be good enough to be a coach. And that didn't sit well with me because the persona that I wanted to be was me. The persona that I wanted to have was my energy, my enthusiasm, my words, my everything. And not be this pretend actor that was on stage. And then when I got off stage, I'd go back to being me. And maybe I lost a little bit of me in that. That was not what I wanted to do. So just encouraging you to take a step back and say, how authentic are we being? And if we're not, why? If we're not, why? Are we thinking that our only way to success is to pretend to be somebody else? Or are we doing it as an avoidance tactic to avoid being our authentic self and maybe having to deal with parts of ourselves that we all like so much? Because if I'm pretending to be somebody else, that other part that I don't like, it's kind of dead to me. But here's what's fascinating. Whatever your beliefs are, God, universe, higher power, source, whatever it is, I promise you, avoiding only works for a short time. Whatever you're avoiding, I always love when I've been in a room of brilliant leaders talking about this. God, universe, source, whatever it is for you, nothingness, whatever that is, will show up in whispers. Okay. And so that might be what we're avoiding or ignoring. But then the whispers get louder and louder. And if you continue to avoid or to ignore, eventually, what I say is the 2x4 to the forehead shows up, and it is going to be presented to you in a way that you can't avoid it anymore. That could be an environmental thing. It could be a person shows up in your life that you're like, oh my God, I cannot stand that person. I never want to be in a room with them again. Guess what that is? That's you. And it's everything you wanted to avoid or that you didn't like about you is showing up because you ignored the little whispers along the way. So rather than ignoring, I'm going to invite you into really spending some time thinking about how could I be my most authentic self? And what is it about me that I don't like or that I'm avoiding? And if somebody or something shows up that just sets off a charge inside of you, like, it happens. You might be at a party and there's just that one person that is at your dinner table or, standing around the cocktail with you that you're like, oh my God, it's like nails on a chalkboard. I want to push them down. I want them out of my space. They're a reflection of something in you that you're trying to avoid. So if we got fancy about this is the work of Carl Jung, where he talks about shadow, right? He talks about unconscious, subconscious work, and that a lot of times what we are avoiding is living in our shadow. Our shadow is really everything that we don't want to be, and we might be ignoring it or avoiding it. The shadow work is so powerful. And I want to tie this together for you because I had a really hard time grasping this. I'm like, how can it be everything I don't want to be? I mean, then I'm just not that, right? So I'm going to avoid it. But that's not how it works. So I don't know if you remember, I've talked about this in several podcasts. There's happy and sad. There's good and there's bad. You can't have those. Let's just take happy and sad. If we eliminated sad, we would never really know what happy was because we would just be in a level state. It's the flip side. It's the yin to the yang, right? It's over here telling us this is sad, but this is happy, and it almost elevates that happy. It's the same thing about the shadow or what you're avoiding. You're avoiding it, right? And without it, though, you wouldn't really know who you're meant to be. So there's a lot of stuff in the shadow that is a representation of what we don't want, but we're avoiding it. And when it shows up, elephant in the room, dancing around in the tutu, that person that just getting on your nerves, it's because you haven't spent time embracing and accepting it. Now, I'm not saying that by acknowledging it or that you're just going to succumb and surrender to it. That's not it. But it's removing the charge you have around it and appreciating it for what it is. So, for example, if you've ever spent any time with me one-on-one, some people I've been known to have been labeled as kind of a jerk. And I consider myself to be a really kind person. But what I also am is really direct. I'm direct beyond, and I'm a high driver. So I may say or do something that just lands on somebody the wrong way. It was meant to be nice. I'm direct. Let's go to the next thing. And if I allow that to bother me, right, that people are saying this about me, I'm not going to avoid it. That's just part of my DNA. But there are things that I ignore that I don't want to embrace. Okay, so I'm direct. Great. And you can call me a jerk. You can do whatever. I know that I'm coming at you from a position of caring and loving, that I'm going to say something that maybe nobody has said to you or that you're not allowing yourself to hear. So if you view me as being direct, then that is something that you need to deal with if it bothers you, because it does not bother me. Now, there are some things that I don't love. I don't love that I am impatient, right? And I could ignore it. I could avoid it, but it's going to show up. So what I have done is I look at something that I don't like about myself. I don't like how impatient I am. It really can be challenging. And rather than avoiding it, I've embraced it. You know what? I'm impatient, and it has allowed me to move my business forward. I'm impatient, and it allows me to move the needle and to constantly be in a forward motion. I am impatient, and I care about people so much that I want to see them get it quickly. I'm no longer avoiding that part of me because it will show up. And it does. So what is it about you that you don't like? And if you don't know, ask a friend. If you don't know, pay attention. And I say this, I want to make sure we all understand it. If you have a charge around something, that is something that you are avoiding or you haven't processed. That's it. And my charge, I mean, like for me, we'll go back to the example, like somebody annoying, like you've met at a dinner party, at cocktail hour, or happy hour with, and you're like, I cannot get away from this person fast enough. They have irritated the bejeebus out of me. They've gotten under my skin. I don't know why. I don't ever want to utter another word to them. That's a charge. That's a charge. That's a strong charge. Might be, I don't enjoy that person. I don't ever want to talk to them again and move on. But it has stirred up something within me that I am projecting onto them, when in reality, it's my own stuff. And so what are the parts of you that you don't like that if you embraced and said, okay, I'm this and it does this for me, makes a huge difference rather than avoiding it. So I do think there are times when we emulate and want to be somebody else and we lose ourselves in it because we don't want to deal with the stuff that we don't like about ourselves and we want to avoid. And that's really some of the most juicy, important stuff for us to lean into. There's such great lessons in what's happening in, again, what Carl Jung talks about in the shadow. Shadow is just everything that you don't want to be, which then allows you to realize what you do want to be. However, sometimes what's in that shadow just needs to be embraced and not changed, and embraced and accepted in a way that you no longer have a charge around it. So it's kind of heavy, but it's really important that you pay attention. I always say God speaks in whispers. That gut feeling. You took a client on that your gut was telling you not to take on. And things progress, right? You're working with them. Things are getting worse. You call off. You can't make the next appointment. You try to get somebody else to work with them. The whispers just keep getting louder. Pay attention to what it is about that person that is lighting you up, because there's a lesson there. There's a lesson. And there's a way for you to process it and to embrace it and to acknowledge it and to move on. We all have stuff about us that we don't like. And I'm not talking about, I wish I was 6'4". I don't like my height. That's some of it, right? But I've embraced that. I'm not at an age that I'm going to grow. And so I've made the best of what I am. I don't even think about it anymore. I think I'm under the average height of the US male. I think average height is 5'10", and I'm 5'7". Used to bother me, had a charge around it. I've worked through it, and I no longer have a charge around it. So there are things about ourselves that we don't like that we need to process, or it will show up. And it will show up sometimes at the most inconvenient time with a client, with a loved one, with a friend, with a new venture. It will show up. So just pay attention. Best thing to do, which is what I'm going to ask you to do, is to really just sit with and ask yourself, am I really being me? A lot of the sales entrepreneurs that I coach want a script, okay? This is a direct conflict for me about you being you. You be you, you use your words, not mine. Scripts sometimes help you formulate what the direction of the conversation should go. But if you are so married to a script that you cannot speak on your own, you're not being you. So if you haven't guessed by now, I hate scripts because it doesn't allow you to be you. So take a look at your business, see where you're not showing up as your authentic self. Ask yourself why. Is it because you thought you had to be this other person to get to the level of success? And that's okay if you did. Now you know that that's not true. You can be you and be equally, if not more successful. I promise you, if you're doing it to be successful, you've put a lid on yourself, because you're going to hit a ceiling a lot quicker when you're pretending to be somebody else. People will sense it. They will move to you, and then they will move away from you. Or are you not being you because you want to avoid something? You want to avoid the shadow. You want to avoid what you don't like about you. You want to avoid that. So if you just become somebody else, it's easier to do. Those are two important things that I'm going to ask that you really spend some time this week with. Whether it's in your journaling, just sit with and ask yourself, am I really being me? Where am I not being authentic? Where do I feel misaligned? And why? And figure it out. And then sit with, and this is interesting exercise, sit with the parts of you that you don't like, because those are the things that are going to trigger. Those are the things that are going to light you up, because somebody else will present themselves in that way and you think it's them, but it's really you. And the sooner you can process that, the better. So be you, stop avoiding the things about you that you don't like or that you have a charge, because guess what happens when you let that stuff go? It's easier to be you. It's kind of like being, and I hate this because this is a really extreme comparison, but it's like being a liar. I think we've all been around people who lie when the truth would be just so much easier. And I think, how stressful must that be to have to remember all of those lies versus just being who you are? It's no different. If you've chosen to take on a persona, if you've chosen to avoid being you because of things you don't like, it's really not that much different. Your brain is working so hard to try to fit in where it may not naturally fit in that you're going to actually end up harming yourself more than you would if you just embraced it. So those are the two things I'm going to ask you to do this week. I do this often because I am influenced by a lot of really successful coaches. I am constantly reading a book. I am always have one or two coaches simultaneously. And I really have to sit with this occasionally to make sure I haven't drifted away from who I really am, who Tony really is. And then I still have to do a check-in when I get in a situation where I get a charge around something, that there's some unresolved thing going on with me. And until I get comfortable with it, it's going to continue to haunt me. So if you have any questions, know that I do this as well, but reach out to me. Tony@rethinkcoaching.com is my email. Some of you hate email, and you can DM me either on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or. You can find me. If you Google me, you're going to find my cell phone, and you can text or call. If you're really struggling with this and you feel like you've lost your way, I'd be happy to grab a 1-hour free strategy call with you and just talk about this, because this is many times the one thing that when we address and we correct breaks through that ceiling that you've put on yourself by not being you. Care about you guys a ton. Yes, I'm that direct jerk, but I love it because it has allowed me to be me. So embrace some of those things about you. Don't back down. Don't be mean, but really just take a moment and do this exercise. I promise you, it's so much better living a life without charge or without getting lit up about something. And that's how it's June 30th and my year feels like it's flying. It's because I'm living in the space of me. That's it. I'm living in the space of me, and I'm dealing with the crap in the shadow. That's it. Call me if you need anything, team. I will see you in a week. If you're here in the States, have a great 4th of July, and we will see you next week. Take care. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.